I think a lot of times what you have to figure out with some of the automation and quote follow-up templates is it doesn't replace the salesperson, it assists the salesperson.
Nobody can ever be too busy for incoming new business quotes. You can never be too busy for that.
You're paying all that money for those leads coming in. You've got to really massage that and use it. You not just toss it out the window.
All right, everybody, welcome back again. So we are still here with Therese Potter and George Robertson. For those of you who didn't catch our last podcast, George is a guru of automation technology, insurance management systems. I was going to say, like, normally people focus on one system, George, but you are like a true renaissance man of insurance automation, right?
That is very true, Kelly. I go out, I look at all of them, Vertafore, Applied, whatever's out there, that HawkSoft. We can go into others, but yes, I try to learn as many of them as I can.
So let me ask you, because we didn't ask you on this last podcast, but good question is, how did you kind of get, I know you had your family agency, got into technology, but how did you get interested in, how did you get access to all these different systems? Because that's always the question we have is like, I kind of only know my system. Is there better stuff out there? But how did you kind of springboard into all of this?
A great question. So I originally started by writing my own management system back in 1983 in DBase.
Okay.
Now that's unfortunately, Kelly, that's where I made my first mistake, that I didn't continue with that process. We wouldn't be here today. But anyway, I ended up looking for a system for my father's agency. I'd written one in DBase. We wanted to go Windows. So we bought Instar. We got Instar in. Then I worked with Instar. They sold to AMS, which Vertafore, today, right? And I went to work for Vertafore for a couple of years to help them with the transition period of what they were doing, because I was helping the Instar people sell their product at that point in my career. And then after I got out, I made a lot of friends in the industry. I made friends over at Applied, at HawkSoft, Momentum, and people would call and say, "Can you help a client?" I said, "Sure." And I would get in, learn this system, and then just show them how to use it.
So you just kind of just said, I guess I'll learn it.
Exactly. I just got a copy of it and dove in. And I used to have like 3 or 4 computers back before we had the different monitors, and I would just have them on the different machines and just work through them. And now I've got multiple monitors. I can bring them up and I can show how to do policy changes in one system and then another system and then another system. And it's great, especially when people are trying to determine what type of system they want to purchase.
That is a very true statement. And you get on the phone with all the salespeople and they all tell you, this system is going to save your life. Literally, you're going to sell more policies. It's awesome. And then you never talk to the salesperson again.
Right. They're on to the next sale. Correct.
They're on to the next sale. So our topic today is kind of automation and quotes and templates around the sales process. So this is one that I know Theresa's got a lot to share. She manages our secret shopper calls. So we track like how many follow-ups people do, if we have to leave a voicemail, what happens, all of those things. So maybe Theresa, you can start us off. Like, what are some things that you see around the sales process that maybe could be automated as you look at the secret shopper calls? It would be just a simple thing if they worked with our communication templates or George could really help increase the agency's sales.
Well, I think they need to look at how many follow-ups they're doing. I mean, we have some agencies that will make answer the phone call, send an email, and nothing else. The email with a quote in it. And there's other agencies that follow up, have a 3-day, a 2-day, 1-day, 2-day, 3-day, 4-day follow up. And then the secret shopper comes to me and says, how do I get them to stop? and those are the agencies you're like, oh, all right, they're following up. They got it. But there's other agencies that do no follow up whatsoever. So just a simple email template that when a new business quote comes in, they have a template that goes out that says, hey, thanks for choosing my agency. What can we do to get you to call us back and jump on that quote? And little touch points in different time spans, maybe one the day of, the next day, just to let the customer know that they are a valued customer and they really are interested and thankful that the caller called them to get the quote. Because a lot of places are just like, I've had ones where they say, oh, my pipeline's too full right now. I have no space for another quote. And I'm just like,
that literally happened 2 weeks ago, George. Like,
I believe it.
Literally. And the agency was about to spend a ridiculous sum of money turning on more marketing. And because the sales were down, right? So, but after he heard that, he I think he might have punched a wall. Like,
Well, and Teresa, you mentioned something, and I think this is very vital. When I'm talking to agents, a lot of times, one of the things that I find is this: the agent in the office is always busy. There's a multitude of things going on, and they're trying to do the quote, and they're rating it, they're quoting it out, and they're trying to send it back to the client. They call, they don't get them on the phone, they leave a message, or they send an email, and then next day they get busy with something else. They don't call, they forget, or maybe they told the person, or the person was on the phone and said, "I need to talk this over with my spouse or significant other," and they say, "Well, I'll call you back tomorrow." Well, then they get busy, they forget, and it gets like a week later, say, "Oh, I meant to call Joe back," or whoever, and they call and, "Oh, well, we went with somebody else." Well, the key to that email, that automated email going out, is just beautiful, because it does it in the background. It hits the client, and the client says, "Oh, well, they did contact me back via email. I need to call them." And then they reach back. And I share this story, Kelly. Had an employee at an agency, and we implemented the workflows in there, and they put it into their sales process. And all of a sudden they come back and say, "I don't understand. This person keeps calling me back saying I'm sending them emails, and I haven't sent them any emails or done anything. I don't understand why they keep calling me back." And it's because the automation was built in the background. And so the client was actually getting back to the agent, where the agent wasn't calling them. They were just amazed.
Beautiful, right? Like, well, and I think you hit on something. So you're using a word that is one of I consider a swear word, which is the B word of busy.
Right.
It's okay. You can say it. You didn't, you didn't offend me. But you work at a lot of agencies. I know Teresa's been in a lot of agencies. I'm so busy. I'm so busy.
Yeah, everybody says that.
Everyone's so busy.
Yeah.
When I first walked into the first agency I ever worked at, first thing was, "I hope you're ready. It's busy here." And I was like, we've never not been busy. And we look at busy like this grievance, and busy becomes this 100% excuse for things in an agency.
Mhm.
Well, I was busy. I didn't fall asleep. I was busy. Well, okay, great. But like, you have to prioritize, and new business is really, really important. So, for agencies spending money to generate that new business, right? Whether it's just even like website SEO or Google reviews or whatever, when someone calls in and they don't get somebody, and we don't follow up effectively, that lead ages and becomes less valuable, and is honestly a waste of money and resources.
Right.
And I think a lot of times what you have to figure out with some of the automation and quote follow-up templates is, it doesn't replace the salesperson, it assists the salesperson, right? So we used to have this thing where producers back in the day, now I'm going to date myself, George might go back to like when we met, right? We used to say like, okay, producers would be like, "Well, I don't want that. That's just going to replace me. What do you need me if the emails are going to follow up?" And I said, it's going to assist you, not replace you,
Right.
to sell more. And now today's producers are so like, "Well, won't the system just follow up for me?" It's like, well, you also have to call people. Like it's like the pendulum is sort of flip-flopped almost to like, it was, no, I only want to call, to now like, oh, just let the email happen. I'm like, no, there's like, this is Goldilocks. Like, you call and the system follows up at the same time. It's not just one or the other.
Right.
For the process kicks in, really, you have to have that process, and nobody can ever be too busy for incoming new business quotes. You can never be too busy for that. That's what the agency needs to grow. So it's really important, that process, that, basically, okay, you get the call, you do the quote, the automated email goes out at 2:00. You need to call them between 3 and 4:00, that kind of thing. So they know what that process is.
Absolutely. So when we think about some of the stuff that you work on to follow up on new business, George, like, what are some components of good sales emails that you like to see? Like, is there a certain magic sauce or recommendations that you have? I know we have a few, but there's no right or wrong way at the end,
Right.
as long as you're doing something.
I like to make it as personable as you can. I like to definitely have a call to action. What's the next step? What do they need to do when they get that email? The subject line, I think, is important as to how you put that, how you list that on there. Not just say, "Hey, here's your quote." Okay. You want to put something that kind of grasps their attention, and they look at it and say, "Well, I've got to look at that. Or maybe it's a timing issue. I've got to check that real quick." You want to look at it. You want to make sure it's presented in a way that they can understand it. They don't have to read a lot of paragraphs to figure out what's in the email. I think if you bullet some of those items, that's a good way to go. So those are some of the things I like to do when we're just working on those emails and sending them back to the client. I think that's beautiful. Now, the other thing, I'll throw this out. I know we're talking about emails, but the other thing I think this may be a different podcast, Kelly, but just doing video. If you got the time to do a Loom video and just go through the quote, I think that just speaks volumes.
I agree with that. And this is what I say about video too, though. I'm curious your thoughts on it. I think video is amazing. We're on a video right now. We do a lot of video. However, I have met some people that are god awful on video. And
This is true.
but I've also met people who won't even try to get on video. Like it's either like the three buckets, right? Like they don't want to, not going to try, not going to do it, don't want to. I say you could just not even show yourself, just do your voice recording of walking through the quote.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And then some people who hop on and I'm like, oh my, well, we need to go through a lot more dress rehearsals to get this like normal. Cause you don't need to, in like a quote video, right? You don't need to spend 35 minutes.
Just be yourself. And if you don't want to put your face on the video, fine. Just go through it and go through the quote process, put the quote on the screen and just talk about the different policies and procedures that are in there and the coverages and finish up.
Yeah. Or I like to say, you know what? Maybe you should just never watch your own video. Because like if you watch your own video, you want to die. You want to like poke your own eyeballs out. Like just go with it. Just go. So the kind of for me, I think that one of the big components that we have for sales emails is one, following up, like if a new lead comes in and you don't connect with them, following up to kind of like chase them, right? To help that. And George, kind of in your experience too, have you also seen like text messaging work as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I know we're talking about emails a lot, but text.
Right. But text is a vital part of it. Of course, now you've got all the laws and things you have to go through on that. But texting is a beautiful process as far as communication, short and sweet on the text, nothing real long or lengthy. Just a quick, hey, checking in to see if you're ready to talk about your quote, something like that. Hey, really miss you. Maybe you forgot about me. Those kind of things. You can make it fun and jovial to some degree too, right? They like that sometimes and put that out there. But texting, I think, is very beneficial.
Huge, huge, huge. So on new business, I like to think of this as like your insurance policy, right? So we get B word busy and we can't follow up. At least the automation is running in the background, I feel like, to be able to fuel that success. And so if you can't, let the automation assist you in getting out there, but also do not rely 100% on the automation. You are still a sales professional and need to pick up the phone.
Right. Exactly. That's what you're being paid for.
Yeah. And just remember, not all emails are going to land in people's inboxes, and not everybody gives you their best email address either, which is why you need to kind of cover your bases and make sure you're always following up. And the last thing I want to just say about the sales emails is, can we talk a little bit about the last email, like the breakup email? Because this is like, it's like the best one, right?
Right.
Georgia talked about call to action.
Right.
I think the last one is, hey, I'm going to have to close your file.
Mm-hmm.
And amazing that I think it's something like 35-40% of people like, don't close my file, and they call you 10 minutes later. So it's okay to remember in sales, it's okay to be a little direct. It's okay to pull, we call it pulling your love away. You have other leads to tend to pull your love from this one. And then if you're doing it really right, working with George or some of our email, templates is, if it's a good lead, you could recycle it for next year. I mean, I could go on maybe in another podcast, George, of how angry I get when I hear agencies spending all this money and gobs of leads or opportunities, however that works for them, and they don't recycle an unsold lead to save their life.
Yeah, Kelly, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the piece of that is you can automate with the systems that are out there today.
100%.
You can automate this and have it drop back in, 60 days prior to the renewal date, and start working that process again. And you're just reaching back out with a different message saying, hey, we talked to you last year. Now we want to just check in, see if you'd like to speak with us again. And because you're right, you're paying all that money for those leads coming in. You've got to really massage that and use it. You not just toss it out the window.
110%. And I had this whole conversation with one of our agencies that's probably going to listen to this podcast, and probably I will get a text message somewhere after this. But, the sales agents are so used to the phone ringing, right? So the phone rings, and I call it like the agency owner's like the drug dealer. Like, I need another hit. I need another hit. And they become so addicted to only inbound calls that when you ask them to make an outbound call, Like oh my God, like the look of horror. And I'm like, this is somebody that asked for, we quoted them last year. You didn't sell it. So now you need to call them this year. And they're like, we can't do that. We're too busy.
Right, exactly. Because they don't want to do it.
I know. And you can cherry pick, like these are really good qualified customers, right? That probably just stayed loyal to their agent for one more year. And I'm just like, they're like, we have so many inbound leads, but I'm like, but you're not hitting your sales goal.
Right. Right.
And I tell the agencies to cut back on the new leads, and the agency owners are drug dealers and addicted too. And they're like, we can't drop back on the leads. The sales will drop. I'm like, for like a minute until they figure out how to find the phone on their desk and make an outbound call.
So Kelly, let me ask you another question. So one of the things that we've stumbled upon at products like Slide Broadcast, where you can record a message and have it go back out. I mean, have you seen any of that work in the lead process to just call back out for a renewal lead, provided you've got the authority to call them back, and just it's a ringless voicemail message, just dropping that in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth because it's nice to be able to connect with somebody. So to me, something is better than nothing.
Right.
But I also had this conversation with the agency owner where it's like, and you need to put your big boy pants on and tell the producers that they're going to make 1 hour of outbound calls to really qualified people where all they're doing is complaining that the lead quality is bad. They can cherry pick, right? Like, because I do think that if they're not going to do it or you're short staffed, 110%. But if you're in sales in today's world, you need to also fill your own pipeline a little bit. And as you know, George, I mean, the management system is like a gold mine of like opportunity to just go hammer and harvest, putting up whatever from voicemail drops to automation. Also a great place for a new producer to start, right? Take someone green. You don't need to have a license to make an outbound phone call and transfer it to somebody else. So for all these agencies out there struggling with producers and how do you find them, build one.
Yeah. I want to go back, Kelly, just real quick on the breakup email piece.
Yeah.
I really want to share this because I took a sales training class years ago, and that was one of the things that they taught in that class, right? Fast forward, the entity I took the class with, I'm not working for them anymore, but they needed me to do some consulting work for them. So I sent a couple of proposals over. No response. So I typed up the breakup email, sent it over to them. And the next thing you know, they're calling me on the phone. Oh, no. We won't even use you. We're just, we're backlogged over here on this. And, and then it regenerated that conversation again. So I really wanted to just take a moment and rehash that breakup email, how important that is.
Yeah. I like to say you got to take your love away, right? And clean up your pipeline and just say, I'm moving on. You're no longer in my purview. Let me know if you need anything. So, yeah, I mean, I could talk all the time about salespeople, but this agency, just the story, decided that they might want to hire someone new just to make outbound phone calls. And as opposed to getting their producers to do it, I was like, for 2 hours a week. And I even yelled at them. I go, we just had all of your account managers start making outbound renewal calls to every customer once a year, and you won't stick up to your salespeople to make 2 hours of outbound phone calls. Right. I was like, what? Where is this power coming from? So anyway, we could talk about this forever. Well,
we could.
Then I get excited, and then So. All right. Well, we're going to go over what we all think is the top 10 emails or templates you need in your agency in the next podcast. So, George, thank you. Therese, thank you for sharing your secret shopper expertise as well. And it's all out there. And guys, again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have to be. We have a communication template guide. George can help you with your systems, get it going. So if this is on your radar screen, think about how much money and time you could save by just slowing down a little bit and getting these things up and operational in your agency.
Great.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next podcast.